So here we're going to go into catalogs, creating catalogs. We went a little bit into this before, but the idea behind what you have set in the catalog will determine your proxies, your previews, who gets to write to that catalog, who gets to see that catalog. It all lines up with the administration portion, which is the user accounts and permissions as well. So we'll start with this demo catalog that I created just yesterday. And the demo catalog just shows the admin user has write access, and there's no other user listed here. This is the way that a lot of our customers will do this. They'll just have the admin user and that's it. But if you did want to have more secure access to the database based on user accounts, then we have a way to do that. So the administration window shows me as the admin user. Admin user is active. It's an admin, of course, and that's my default user. If I didn't want that to be a blank password anymore and I just want to set a password for that, pretty easy to do there. I'm going to set that password, enter it again, and now that user has a password. So the admin user is protected now. I can also add other users. So I can add my gym user, and I'm going to make a password for that as well. Description, me. And now Jim is here and is able to be permissioned to see the different catalogs and use the different catalogs. That's really the point of the permissioning here. There's two things you can do with permissions on users. You can apply them to catalogs and you can set them as admins. So Jim is set as a non-admin right now. That means that if the Jim user launches the admin interface on the client, all they'll be able to do is index. They won't be able to go into administration in the catalogs and change things around. They'll just be able to index. In the next version of FastTracker, we're moving that indexing portion over to the WebTech front end as well. So there'll really be nothing else you'll need to do besides administration in this interface. But for now, you can index and as a non-admin user in this interface. Jim is the active user. Going to catalogs here, my demo catalog. Jim has no access to it because I haven't set anything for that yet. Only the admin had write access when I created it, so I can set write permission for Jim. So now if I relog in as Jim here or on the client side, I'll be able to write to that catalog. That means I'll be able to add clips to the catalog through indexing. I'll be able to add metadata tags to the catalog. Now, I don't know, there isn't too many cases why you'd want to have read-only access, but I can set read permission as well, so that I can't change anything about that. Although, if you're browsing through the assets, you probably want to be able to put some notes, some keywords, things like that into the assets to help you sort of manage them and get messages back and forth to the editors about what you want to do. So, most of the time we're going to have write permission for the catalog, just not admin permission for a certain user. So that is the user permissions, and of course I can create as many users as I want. Here it's I also have the ability to toggle active if I want to just sort of make a user inactive. I can do it here and then I can delete the user. I can disconnect a user, so if someone is connected to the system and I can see that there are connected users here. So for example, here you see that there's multiple connections that are coming in as admin. So if I see a connection here for Jim, I can disconnect that user. Maybe because I'm not supposed to be looking at that catalog or looking at the system in general. I can do that from here. And I can also toggle admin here and rename the users, things like that. So back to the catalogs. We talked before about the ability of a catalog to have an auto proxy, and we said the demo proxy was going to be the auto proxy. So in the proxy settings, here's my demo proxy. It's actually a preview. The naming convention we use for previews versus proxy, they're all proxies. I mean, they're just replacements of the high resolution clip. But a preview to us is something that's not really usable for editorial. It's not meant to be edited with. It's just a 640 frame. But otherwise, it has all the attributes of the clip. It still maintains the wrapper format, like an MXF or MP4. It still maintains the timecode, metadata that the clip came in with, as well as, of course, anything you put in the record after that fact. But a proxy clip is more what we consider to be, an HD or original resolution. So in this case, this is a proxy encode presets. My demo proxy is here, going to the previews volume. Path is demo. It's yes to auto encode. Now, if I want to add another proxy choice here, or maybe if I set a preview like in this case, but I also want to have the ability to have a proxy setting that I can call up on demand, I might do an HD high here. So an HD high is something I can add in as a non-auto encode, and closing this up, you'll see that other presets here, you'll see HD high shows up. That's a way for me, if I decide that maybe the source material isn't compatible with the timeline, or the application's having a problem with it, or I'm trying to access it over a slow connection, and I'd rather not use the preview clip to edit with because it's really low quality. I can on demand ask for a HD high bitrate clip for that as a proxy, and then use that. It's going to be lower bitrate, most likely than what I'm working with from the camera, but it'll be better quality, so I'll be able to use it, perhaps over a lower bitrate connection. So that's the purpose of the other presets here, is so that you have something on demand. And when we get to the client side, I'll show you sort of how to activate those on-demand proxies. We went over proxy presets already, but as I mentioned before, faster, so the encode speed and encode quality will determine the size of the file overall. So if you're looking for extremely small files, then you want to keep it at preview resolution, maybe a medium or slow encode speed, and a low quality. Now you can set it to low quality. If you set it to low quality and go very fast, it's not going to look very good, and it's still going to be, it's still going to be larger than it should be. So you want to slow that down so that it can chunk through it a little bit slower and do a better job of compressing it, and still give you a higher quality image. So this would be the way to have a preview clip at a very low bit rate that you can hang on to forever. You can leave it on the system, and it's going to take up 1 to 3%, sometimes less than 1% if it's coming from UHD, of the size of the original. So the other ways to do this here is HD. HD fast medium is kind of what I normally see out there. That gives you a decent quality that's compatible with an HD timeline without having to rescale, and it's usable in the proxy preview, the preview window as well through the IP network, and it's not too high of a bit rate. So on to administration here. I already showed you the user account creation, how to toggle admin on that to see if Jim logs in to this interface from the client, will he see the administration tab, will he see the catalogs tab, things like that. That means you're an admin. And I can make as many users as I want here. What I have on the other side here, these are all tags. So these are all the tags that I have to work with by default. So everything the clip comes in with can be placed in as a tag, stream tag, file tag. It'll be placed in the metadata. And I have the additional opportunity of creating additional tags here that may not be in the original metadata for the clip. So just to show you an example of that, I can add a custom tag here. And adding a custom tag, I can, it's going to be a text tag. These are more for power users. Text tag can have options, and the options are: do you want to see a drop-down menu? So when I access this tag in my client, do I want to see a drop-down menu of the information that will populate that tag, or do I want to just be able to free type into it, and that's it? Options are going to be set up by comma. So Jim, Dave, Buddy. All right, those are my camera guys. Okay, and so maybe I'm going to call this one camera op or something. So it's different than the operator or the camera that's normally there. And I can just always show it, so the sort order doesn't really matter there. I'll have it always show up so that it's always in the metadata fields of the clip when they come in, so I can easily select it and add those drop-down menu items. And so I'll say OK to that. So there it is, and there's my options. We'll go back to looking at that once we get to the client-side interface, and I'll show you sort of how that now appears into the metadata of the clip. But there's different things we can do here. We can toggle those. You can modify any tag that's here to add. So if I do have just the operator tag and I want to modify that to add options to that tag, I can just do that instead of adding a new tag. And so on and so forth. The things that you can do here on the server that you can't do on the client side, even if you're an admin, include archive paths. Archive paths, this is regardless of whether you have Object Cloud or not, although you'll see Object Cloud is one of the selections here. Object Cloud is our cache volume for cloud upload. And Object Cloud basically creates, or you create a volume on your system of whatever size, and everything you put into it uploads to the cloud. And by virtue of that, we can have archive paths that target directly the Object Cloud cache volume and thereby upload to the cloud. The Object Cloud cache volume will then at some point get flushed, and we keep track of whether or not that file is still on the disk or it's been flushed from the system but still exists in its file and folder format the way you'd see it in a normal drive. So it's a pretty cool way to integrate cloud storage in the system, and it integrates very well with FastTracker as well. So you'll see here I have a few different archive paths. Now the archive paths are set up as profiles initially, so that you don't have a choice of just sort of willy-nilly where you're going to put the stuff every time you want to archive it. It's always going to go to the same place. So this is my copy to cloud. It's a copy operation. It's going to go the storage type of Object Cloud, which means we know that it's going to an Object Cloud cache volume, and we're going to keep track of that status of that clip going forward, whether it's offline, has been flushed, or it's online, it's cached, or it's prefetched back from the cloud. We'll know that. It can make it easier for you to get access to it if you know if it's actually there or not. The path is cloud, and the volume is called cloud, and that's why that's kind of the most obvious way I know to make an Object Cloud volume obvious as being a cloud volume. So the volume is called cloud, and you can either preserve or you can strip the path. Path handling is important, because path handling, especially when you're creating proxies, which we can do to the cloud as well, making sure that the path handling is correct means that you can link to either location, the online version or the version on the cloud or the proxy version. We make all of our proxies to match the exact path of the original, but on a different volume. So you can do the same thing here, preserve the path of where that file is coming from. If it's just a Dropbox, for example, if I want to make a new file movement here, so for example I'll call this Dropbox. So my Dropbox is going to go into my cloud volume, which is right here, the X volume, and it's going to go into the Dropbox. That just so happens to be a location that's always uploading to the cloud, and it's always flushing as soon as it gets uploaded to the cloud. So it's just dropped in, it goes to the cloud, and gets rid of it off disk, although the header information is still there, the sparse file is still there. Now this Dropbox, I can see here, I have the operation is a copy. I could have it either be the copy or a move. Move deletes the original, so keep that in mind. We don't let you move everything. If something is already in an archive location, we won't let you move it out and delete it. We only let you move things that are in an online location, because we always want to maintain one copy of it, of course. And so a copy operation here will go to Dropbox. The storage type is Object Cloud, because it will be going right to the cloud, and it will have an offline status at some point in the future when that gets flushed from the cache volume. And I will strip path here, because it just means that I just want one flat level of files. It's a Dropbox. I want one flat level of files. I don't care about the hierarchy. And especially if it's a file that came from a camera card, 17 directory levels down, I don't want to have to recreate all of that and have to have people dive through all of that in the Dropbox. I want it to be right up front. So that's what I'll do there, and you'll see here strip path has been added to path handling. It's a copy operation to an Object Cloud storage, and it is in the volume cloud in the folder Dropbox. So those are archive paths, and you do a lot of stuff with these. I mean, on a per project basis, you could be sending from NAS to online. If you're ingesting all your camera masters to a NAS device, you could highlight that NAS device as the location that it's coming from and indexed on, and you can be pulling that over to the online location if you want. So there's lots of ways you can be going in or out of the storage system through these archive paths. And then finally, my Zendata tab here, which once again, it's something that is only available if you're in the admin mode, and if you're on the server, and if you have Zendata running. Zendata is the software behind Object Cloud. So when you install Object Cloud to your Facilis server, you're installing Zendata. and Zendata is a company who makes basically object storage for Windows servers that creates sparse files or stub files of the information that's being uploaded to the cloud. So it's still searchable, it's all still there, it's all still easy, it's easy to see what you have in the cloud just from this one directory structure on the server, and it's easy for us to manage as well through the APIs we have here in the FastTracker. So you'll see here that I have a few different Zendata profiles. These are actually file groups, and the file groups include my LTO backup and LTO archive. They include my proxies. Now the proxies that I'm sending to the cloud, I'm actually using as proxies in FastTracker. So the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to flush those from the cache volume. Otherwise I'll just keep on downloading them every time someone wants to view a proxy. So I retain those. So they're a different file group, and you'll see here that in the proxies file group I say flush written files from disk, never. Just don't do it. They're always going to stay there on the cache volume. But because they're in the cache volume, they also exist in the cloud, which is the point of proxying to the cache volume in the first place. Wasabi Cloud is my sort of default that everything that goes into it, everything that goes into the cloud volume, if it's not in the proxies, LTO archive, or LTO backup folders, will be sent to the cloud immediately, and you'll see it will flush immediately after it's been written to the cloud. So it'll go away, it'll turn into an offline file at that point. But if I restore it back from the cloud, it tells me here that I'm never going to flush that from the disk if I have restored it, because that probably means that I want to use it. And I might want to use it directly on the cache volume, because that's a fast volume. It's like any other volume you have. It just happens to be a cache volume for the cloud. So restoring that from the cloud to the cache volume leaves it there so you can work with it. So those are sort of, I mean, a lot of workflows can be accommodated with this window. We can add directly into the Zendata file groupings through this window, and that's the API we've developed for that. And there's lots of things you can do here as far as path exclusions, file exclusions here, setting the volume set, where that's going. If you have multiple cloud volume sets, if you have multiple LTO volume sets, you can set those up if you want. I have right here, you can see I have an LTO backup and an LTO archive. I have a library with two different sets of tapes. One is an archive set and one's a backup set. The backup set is constantly being swapped out, potentially moving off site, new tapes coming in, so that the backup set is always refreshed and is, you know, disaster proof off site. The archive set is just kind of sitting there, you know, to just have a archive, cumulative archive on tape, that, you know, every time that fills up, I take a tape out, put a new tape in, add that to the archive set, and keep going. So that's sort of, you know, different ways you can set up file groups, and different ways you can set up volume sets within Zendata. Besides all of that, the only thing I didn't hit on yet is the index, but the index, that's not really an admin function, because the indexing just requires this interface, but it's actually a non-admin function. You can index from anywhere. If you index from the desktop of a client, then you can have a little bit different functionality than you would if you were indexing from the server, and I can show you that right here.